everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan. We're off the Motor City Mad Mouth. Very loud tonight. Then again, what's new with my colleagues here? Jacob Christner to the top. There's Jacob.
How's it going tonight?
Doing all right. And JB Ellis.
Hey, what's going on? How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing all right. And of course, the man's busy working on some Super Bowl preparations. I can understand why the man has his hat backwards, okay, because all that process is probably backwards. And the newest member of the Sports Exchange is Travis Holmes. He is from inside the pigskin, but we thought we'd bring him on here tonight and give him a change of pace. Welcome back. A new opportunity for you, Travis.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
So for the audience that doesn't know Travis, why don't you give them a little bit of a brief overview, Travis, before I get to the particulars?
For the last 2 years, I've been covering the Jacksonville Jaguars with A7BN Sports as their game day analyst. Basically, I just break down the plays, tell them who's at fault for what play went right, what play went wrong, and why. Also, I cover the Jaguars for BigCatCountry.com. As the news correspondent there, and also have a podcast on Fridays, also Jaguar related, because it's all Jacksonville. I'm in Orlando, right outside of Jacksonville, a few hours south of Jacksonville, and also, as Scott mentioned already, Inside the Pigskin on Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. Every week. I'm a panelist on that show. Nice for you guys to have me finally, branching out to also the Sports Exchange. Appreciate it, man.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, while we're on that thing, we're going to let everybody know what Jacob Christner, how they can get a hold of you.
Yes, I am Sundays on Sunday mornings with the professor and the pupils, Mondays with Top Rope Talk. Been nothing on Tuesdays, Wednesdays here with Scott, with JB, and with 1990s Booker T. And then we have this, and then we've got Thursdays, the Pundits Pundit, and every once in a blue moon the Gauntlet.
Okay, very good. And last but not least, JB Ellis.
JB_ the program on X. Yes, I said X, so I'm getting with the new name. At Sideline Sports on X and everywhere else, or at Sideline Sport 1. It all depends what site you're going to. Follow him on YouTube. You'll see a lot of great stuff. NFL alumni, of course, NGBN TV, DB TV, and who knows where else you're going to see us. I know we're going to be in Las Vegas, where I have a feeling this team's going to be there. I don't know if I'm happy about that just yet, but they're probably going to be there, guys.
Well, we're also working on your website, so your website is more than just air now. It's starting to take shape, but we'll give more progress as we go along. Also, let everybody know that the Sports Exchange, you're welcome. The Sports Exchange being broadcast around the world. That's right. They call it a globe. They call it a world. They call it something. The audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in chat rooms, one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. Candy Ebling's behind the scene and produces all the shows. I have a book out there, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Pretty much goes into old school media versus new school media. Available on Kindle and Amazon. And finally, NGBN TV will launch on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire mobile devices. It will be in 85% of the homes in the United States and Canada, and 4.1 billion, that's right, billion mobile devices. I know today's been a big coaching day. I'll just mention a couple, but we won't get into as much detail unless we have a little bit more time later. We know that in the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks hired Doc Rivers as their new head coach. And of course, now the latest report is Jim Harbaugh is indeed headed to the LA Chargers. I believe it's a 5-year deal. More details will be divulged. Well, those are the stories that we are following here on the Sports Exchange. First thing I want to get to is I want to go ahead and size up two key coaching hires. We have Jared Mayo to New England, and then the Raiders hired Antonio Pierce and paired him with former Chargers general manager Tom Telesco. Okay, we'll start with JB Ellis. What are your thoughts about both of those hires?
Listen, it's always an interesting move when you make a change in the dynamic, and you could bring in a better coach. Sometimes it's just the right fit. Sometimes it's the opportunity. Sometimes you're able to get a bigger name. I think this is going to be good for both those teams, and I see good things in the future for them.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about D'Amico Ryans, I can honestly say, is he's done a really, really good job with the Texans. So watching a young guy like him succeed paved the way for the opportunity for Jared Mayo, who obviously inherits a 4-13 team. So he's walking into a situation where he doesn't have to go behind a legend who has a good record. Now he has to clean up the mess instead of be a part of it. So I think there'll be a little bit looser reins. With that said, Travis Holmes, what are your thoughts about both of these hires? And also, JB, why don't you comment on the Antonio Pierce? He certainly earned his stripes to become the Raiders coach.
Listen, that was a move that if they didn't make, their fans were going to go crazy. The players were going to be completely unhappy. That was a no-brainer. They did the right thing. It had to be done. And you saw as soon as he was the interim coach, the difference in the play. I mean, they went from 0 to 100 the way that they just turned it on. And it's a shame to see that, a team doesn't perform for a certain coach and all of a sudden they start believing and performing. But for whatever he did, he brought out something in them. And I hope it continues because I always liked Antonio Pierce. He's a good guy. And to see the team do well for him was phenomenal. Now he earned the job. Let's see what he's going to do for the future.
All right, now I'll turn it back over to Travis Holmes. You know the question. You have two coaches involved. You got Jared Mayo and you have Antonio Pierce.
Yeah,
one at a time.
I mean, to JB's point, the Raiders couldn't have fumbled this one again. After they had the last interim coach who did well. What was it, Rich?
Bisaccia.
Thank you, yeah, Bisaccia, and that was a hard one. Like the fact that they couldn't do the same thing again. Like having an actual quality coach in the building with the players already having the buy-in and showing you he can do the job, showing you that he can implement that discipline with the team and just getting them on track. Whether or not you have the players, that's a whole nother conversation as far as building the team and such, but showing you that you have a 500 plus team realistically, and implementing I want to say Oakland, but you know what I mean. The Oakland, Las Vegas way, the style, the culture, whatever you want to call it in that locker room. There's no way you could have just fumbled that bag again. So they had him in-house. They kept him in-house. Good job there. As far as the Patriots are concerned, pretty much to your original point, that D'Amico Ryans hire kind of gives a little bit more confidence, around the league. Going from a defensive team, a lot like the Texans, having a team that was already a pretty solid defensive team, whether or not the offense is a shambles, that's another conversation. But, having a team that was already a pretty solid defensive team, and now all you have to do is just be able to moderately keep that good, keep that solid, and find a way to improve on your offense. So, it's still going to come down to, like the Houston Texans, who you have at quarterback, who's going to be your OC. That's going to be a big hit for him. So it really does. He's going to need that experienced GM to kind of lean on, which is probably why they went the Tom route.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what they did. They didn't want a rookie general manager, and they didn't want a rookie coach. That's a recipe for disaster. So you're right there.
So he can succeed. A defensive coach, another defensive coach, gonna follow up the defensive coach of all defensive coaches lately, and Bill Belichick. So yeah, it's a great hire for both teams, but it's still going to come down to who's that quarterback, who's that OC. So that next hire is going to be really important.
Okay. Last but not least, Jacob Christner.
Well, Antonio Pierce is absolutely my favorite hire, completely. I mean, you got to realize just how much energy that they had, that they got received with him coming in completely. We know who the last coach was. I'm not even going to say his name. We know the last coach, just awful. And then I think truthfully, even if it would have been the one win, it ends up he goes 500. But if it would have been the one win, I think winning in KC did it. That meant that team, that constant contender every year, went into their building and won. They had all that energy to believe that they could do it. And that's the big thing. And eventually he's going to have to get more experience and do more things with the X's and O's. Right. But sometimes the adrenaline does it. And it's and you're right, the D'Amico Ryans thing does do it. But as far as Gerard Mayo goes, we're going to find out truthfully if he's there's a thing with this. Remember, he's kind of a hand pick. He's kind of a hand pick here as far as a replacement. So we're going to absolutely find out if Gerard Mayo was actually calling some things during that time and they're 4-13, or if he was a hand pick, didn't do anything, and has to start it from his own scratch. We will not know until the season. So we'll see how good he is, because if he was just a hand pick and he was calling some of the plays, and that's not a good confidence booster because they're 4-13. If he wasn't doing anything and Bill had the whole team, then he can start it over. Then we're going to see what he can do for real. And then that's the fair part.
Okay, well, that's fair. Okay, and one thing I want to go ahead and mention here is Max Crosby was going to force his way out if they didn't hire Antonio Pierce. And then, of course, Devontae Adams certainly wanted him as well. So that definitely went out there to me and stood out. So next thing we're going to talk about is, according to Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott, he told reporters the team doesn't need to start from scratch after another disappointing effort. Okay, JB, I know you were pulling for the Bills. So, are you with it or not?
Listen, you can't blame the defensive coordinator for a game like that. Can't blame the defense. It was kind of, the way it was. It's an unfortunate event. The Bills, it reminded me of Scott Norwood with the missed field goal. And it was really a disappointment. I was pulling for the Bills, even though I got the Chiefs jersey on tonight. There's really no blame except it's a team blame. There were a lot of things that I thought they could have done better to win that game. I know that you can't put the blame on one person. It's a team game. I thought the referees were awful. I really hate to say it. I feel as though when you play the Chiefs in an important game, it's as though you're against the other team of the Chiefs. And, I look at it unbiased because I don't have a dog in the fight. Yeah, I want the Bills to win, but, I'm watching the game objectively. I'm a Giant fan, and I watched that all year. And, if there's not a play that's right, that's called for them, I'll tell you the same way. But I really feel as though when you watch a Chiefs game, especially an important one, you're playing, the team and the refs, and it's a hard thing to do. You have to almost play a perfect game, and I don't know if the Ravens will be able to do much with it this week.
Okay, Jacob?
Okay. The big thing about it was Josh Allen did exactly what he needed to do. He really did. He played I was almost the game of his life. I'd say number 2. The first one was that last loss. He does everything. What else can you do? And then we can talk about the kickers right there. But as far as the coaching, no. And see, this is the first time you've been on a show with me, Travis. So I'm going to give exactly what I say about coaches, okay? This is what I say about this. It can always get worse. I'm a Bears fan. Yeah. They lost Lovey at 10 wins. 10-win season since 12 years going on now. If you go on the emotional nitwit of the fans, then you pay for it. That's what you do. You've got to, and that's what a lot of front offices do. It's like, if you can go get Andy Reid and strip him from another team and go make it, awesome. If you can go get John Harbaugh, awesome. That would be better than McDermott. There ain't too many that are better than McDermott, though. Then what happens is it can get worse and you get 5 wins. It's the same with the whole thing with Tomlin. It's the same thing with all that. You can get worse. So unless you have a big-time monster replacement, just forget about all that, because you can come from contender that barely misses it to nothing.
Yeah, you are so on point there, Jacob. You really, really are. Everybody's in the business where they want to go out there and just fire the coach. But think about who the replacements are. Is there anybody in this thing that really stands out? The one carrot just left, as it looks like, with Jim Harbaugh. But who's a real glaring guy to me? I think a guy who should get more consideration, I haven't seen his name around lately, is Eric Bieniemy. I don't know why it's taken so long for this guy to not get multiple interviews. I know he recently interviewed with the Washington Commanders. So nowadays I'm a little bit lost about who everybody's looking for. I know Ben Johnson's the name that's being bannered around. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to the Washington Commanders. And JB, I'm glad you're going to be on next week because we'll have probably more clarity at least on the coaching hire. So we'll be able to get into more definitive stuff. But the reality is this: as far as the Buffalo Bills, get off Sean McDermott's back. I mean, the guy missed a tying field goal, not the game winner. I know it's important. I know everybody likes to jump on kickers. And yes, you know what? It's unfortunate that all you do is kick, but the reality it is a high pressure situation, and we all know what it's about. So, I don't think they have to rebuild. I really, really don't. But obviously they had a golden opportunity against Kansas City in their building against Mahomes, and unfortunately they did not capitalize on it. So, no, I don't think they have to rebuild. I think that's a little premature. All right, well, I'm going to go over the stat of the week, and this is going to blow everybody away.
Travis,
Wait a minute.
Travis.
Let me get in on this one, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
I'm sorry, Travis. I forgot. Okay, go ahead.
Funny that you say that. I actually disagree with everyone. Because I do think they need to change it up. I do think at minimum, as far as the players on the team currently want Joe Brady back. That's kind of what it feels like. The feeling as far as the different rumors in the media and such. And I'm like, they got better in some ways, but then overall they got worse after they got rid of Ken Dorsey. Like, they got better in some ways, and those ways is that they chose to run the ball between the 35s. That was literally the only difference in the team. And every objective metric outside of actually just pushing the run, just saying, hey, on these third down situations, we're going to run the ball instead of trying to pass the ball. And outside of that, they got objectively worse in EPA. They got objectively worse in both run and pass. FYI, like the only thing they got better at was being able to kick field goals in those longer field goals and things of that nature. And those 3, 6, 9 points every game is what that changed. That changed everything for that team. So in a lot of ways, I want to say, like, Ken Dorsey wasn't the worst OC out of these two. He just simply was stubborn about passing the ball within field goal range, or passing the ball on those third and short or third and second and manageable situations. I say all that to say they don't need to change over the whole team, no, but they absolutely need a better OC, because frankly, looking at the game, Josh Allen carried the team on his back. Yes, because Josh Allen had to carry the team on his back. You didn't see very many of those plays in structure. And by in structure, I mean, like, hey, the offensive coordinator called this play. This is where the ball is supposed to go. Get the ball out of your hands, move the ball down, matriculate the ball down the field. No. This is Josh Allen being a monster, being a machine, and running, running around in circles, running the ball down the field, putting the ball on some dimes in some crazy spots. And that's not generally something that's going to be able to be, that's hard to continue. That's not sustainable in most situations, and so he's making it harder on his quarterback to carry this team and in those
Right.
tight situations. And because of that, I'm like, I think that offense needs to be remade at minimum. That they're a great team because they have a great athlete, but that doesn't mean that they're a lot like Cincinnati Bengals in that way. You have the athletes, you have the guys, but that doesn't mean you're going to be the better team unless you get better coaching.
Good stuff. All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to let you start off with this particular one, and that is the stat of the week. So get this: in 104 seasons, the Arizona Cardinals have 17 playoff wins. Okay. Now, in 7 seasons, the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, has won 17 playoff games. Wow. All right. Well, you know what, Travis Holmes? You can lead off with this one.
I mean, goodness. That's a rough one. I mean, but the Cardinals haven't had much success since what is that? Time frame, I guess. I'm trying to figure out. Yeah,
Kurt
I
Warner?
don't remember who the last quarterback was at that time.
Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner, there you go. Lord. So it's been a minute. And not to mention, Pat Mahomes. The reason that the Chiefs were able to get Mahomes that year is because that was a severely injured Kansas City team. Like, we all forget that they were like a 4 or 5 win team the season prior, but because they had some serious injuries, and all of a sudden that wasn't truly a bottom 10 of the in the NFL roster. It was just, hey, they had a rough season the year before, And now they're a solid team with a really good quarterback and a really good coach, and he's off to the races. It sucks for the Cardinals and Mahomes. It was a great situation for him. And again, we all know the mutant that he is. So it kind of just was what it was. But I'm sorry to see it. I'm sorry to hear it. And I feel your pain because at least you've had more success than my Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, okay. We're going to send it to the man that is in Chicago, and I know that was one of the names for the Cardinals. When you look at their chronology, right, you have the Chicago Cardinals, and then you have the St. Louis Cardinals, and now you're in Arizona. So we'll turn it over to JBL. As 17-17 equals 34 wins and 100. I mean, those numbers are just staggering, aren't they?
It's shocking to think of the one team's success and one team's failures. Granted, we're talking about one player, but still, I mean, it's been a team for that whole period of time that's had that success, and it'd probably be 18-19 if it wasn't for a defensive offsides the first year,
Right.
So that's just scary to think. Mahomes he has that eye of the tiger that you want to call it. He doesn't let his team lose. The last guy I remember that was like that, as good as he is, guy by the name of Joe Montana.
Right.
And I don't like to throw out names like that, but it doesn't matter what time of the game it is. If you're down within a score and you have the ball with time left, Joe Montana comes to mind that you're not worried. You have a chance to win. Patrick Mahomes is the same way. You knew they were going to score that last possession against Buffalo. We all knew that. It was a matter of, could Buffalo stop them? After they score, could they go move the ball down and get points back? You just know there's very few guys that play the game that you just have that much faith in. He's just like clockwork. I mean, to think this was his first playoff road game. Can you imagine? And they had how many wins already? That was the first one on the road.
16.
He's only had one. He's perfect on the road to the playoffs.
Yeah, he's the same record as Eddie Stanky. Once upon a time, you ever heard of Eddie Stanky?
Yeah.
Have you? Eddie Stanky was 1-0 for the Texas Rangers as a fill-in manager until they hired somebody else. 1-0. So Patrick Mahomes and Eddie Stanky, who in their right mind would think I'd make that comparison? But then again, am I ever in my right mind? Don't answer that question because you already know I'm not. But still, all right. So, all right. Let's face it. When I saw that stat, it just blew me away. 17 playoff wins in that 104-year history of the Cardinals, and then 17 for Mahomes. That's surreal. So, with that said, Mr. Opinion, tackle it.
Mr. Fact. Just call me Mr. Fact. No, the thing is, it's like now we can. You said Eddie Stanky went 1-0 before his replacement. We can do Ted Turner 0-1, just like the Arizona Cardinals. But like when he was a manager for the Atlanta Braves. But the one big thing also you got to realize is, as awesome as he is, and I mean Patrick Mahomes is a mutant, like Travis says. Remember this part also. A lot of those years that the Cardinals were horrible teams, whether Chicago, St. Louis, Arizona, Phoenix, as we could call it first. They were terrible. Got to remember, 1, maybe 2 playoff games. Now we're going up to 4. If you don't have a bye week, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So there's more opportunities to be able to beat those records and those numbers. I'm like, I remember as a Bears fan, Ditka in his time had 12 playoff wins, I believe, in his time. But they haven't had 12 since. They've had exactly 12 since. But there's also more playoff games since that time. Mm-hmm. It's just there's more opportunities and more option, and especially with the 7th seed there is now too. So there's going to be 7 seeds that go beat the Arizona's record. So remember that.
Well,
yeah, but Jacob, you're talking about how many years of being a franchise being around compared to a player.
Bidwell is the reason for that anyway.
Well, regardless, Jacob, the bottom line is listen to JB Ellis for crying out loud.
You might learn something.
Okay, you need a little bit of JB Ellis math, okay? 17 over 104. Don't even ask me because I don't even have a calculator nearby. Is a long, long time. That's all I can tell you. And 17 wins over 7 months, Seriously, come on, Christopher, what are you thinking about here, man? Listen to Professor Ellis. He's trying to educate you. Go ahead, Ellis.
That's just, you're talking about how many years they've been around, close to 100 years. That's
Right.
a win less than every 5 years in the playoffs. So if just take Mahomes 5 years, throw this year out, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What is it? 5 years minus this year will make 5. So he has 16, and he was one behind them in their whole existence. He now tied them in his 6th year.
Yeah.
So that's pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
Oh no, and he is a mutant, and you're right on it. It's pathetic. I'm just saying he's a mutant.
All right, well, you know what, Jacob? Here's our "Are you crazy?" moment of the night of the Sports Exchange. Okay, so after we all have a lot of fun with Jacob Christer. We all like to throw that "Are you crazy?" moment presented by NGBN TV, Sideline Sports, and South Florida Tribune. So, are you crazy? Okay, he's heard. He gets it once a week. All right, no problem. But he said it's an unbelievable stat. That's why it made the show. All right, let's talk about the quarterback matchups for both games. We don't need a story. We need a synopsis. Okay, we have Patrick Mahomes against Lamar Jackson. We'll start off with Christner. Okay, who do you got and why?
Boy, it's going to be a wonderful game. But I'm going to go Mahomes. I'm going to go because one of the things that, and I believe Lamar Jackson has the better OC now with Todd Monken, who allows him to do more. I called Greg Roman his Tecmo Super Bowl. I called him that because it was 4 or 5 of his favorite plays at all times, which were flashy, but the great defenses could get them. Could basically put a spy and put an end to Lamar. Now it's going to get itself a lot better. Same time, KC's got a really, really good defense and best quarterback that he's playing. I mean, just as far as Lamar. And this is a guy who just does not like to lose. So I can see this being another field goal game, and I see KC going to the Super Bowl.
All right, we'll go to the next game. You're going to have Jared Goff against Brock Purdy.
I'm going to go San Francisco. I'm going San Fran. Detroit, no. Nothing against that. Wonderful year. Wonderful Dan Campbell. Enjoy it a lot. But they're saying that Deebo Samuel's going to be around, and there's just too many weapons for Detroit. And Detroit's pass defense is a little iffy, even with all the other great things they've had. So they can kind of throw on them. That's the big deal. So I'm going to go with San Francisco and pull away in the 4th quarter.
Okay. We'll turn it over to Travis.
Yeah, I think I agreed. Well, I'll get into it, but the gist of it is, as far as the Ravens game, you're talking. I'm taking the Ravens over the mutant currently, and I know that's a hard thing to take because that's like voting against Bill Belichick, or in this case, I guess he's the quarterback, Bill Belichick. I don't know another way to say it. Yeah, you don't vote against Pat Mahomes, but that's exactly what I'm going to do because I think this might be the best Baltimore Ravens team, like across the board, defense and offense team that I've seen probably in my adult life at minimum. Because you have some of those 90s teams I don't know, but absolutely in my adult life. The best defense in the league. As far as DVOA, they're like literally the best defense in the league in multiple categories. And the Chiefs' defense aren't bad. They're top 7. It's just at the end of the day, I don't see the Chiefs having a equal team to the Ravens. And Lamar can be amazing, incredible, over the top, superhuman, whatever you want to say about him by himself. In addition to the rest of that team, and I don't see them leaving Kelsey wide open like he was last week on a few occasions. And if they don't have those busted coverages, this is going to feel more like that Detroit Lions versus Kansas City game earlier in the year. A lower scoring defensive fest where it's going to be like a 20-something to 20-something game. I'm just going with the Ravens. And we have Jared Goff and Brock Purdy, San Francisco. I mean, yeah, that feels like it's going to be, unless the Brock Purdy who throws 4 interceptions shows up, I think that's probably going to end up being a San Francisco win. I just think they're more kind of the same thing. These are 2 really complete teams with San Francisco and Baltimore. I just feel like that's going to be the case. You've heard me talk about it on multiple weeks. I want Detroit to be there. It's a
Right.
better story. I like rooting for the underdog, but I don't believe this is the game. I just think that matchup's going to be too rough in so many ways it can go wrong for them.
Okay, we'll turn over to JB Ellis.
Listen, the Ravens, as good as a year as they had, and Lamar, who I love, I'll never forget. I was driving on the highway when he got drafted. I heard about the trade that the Patriots made. It was the last pick in the first round, and the Giants were up second, and we missed Baker Mayfield. I wanted to drive off the road. I was so angry because I wanted a quarterback, because we needed someone to back up Eli to play in the future. And I wanted Baker, but they didn't have the number one pick, so that was gone. And obviously Lamar was the better choice at this point. But then, Lamar's had a good career. He hasn't been great in the playoffs. They had a nice win last week. But, Patrick Mahomes doesn't really lose in the playoffs. And, the Zebras are with them. They all play on that same team for some reason. And, the Chiefs' defense is finally good. If he had that defense a couple of years back, this team would have many more Super Bowls than what they have right now. They finally got it. Their offense is what it used to be. They don't have the receivers they used to have. They have a little bit of a running game with Pacheco. But this team, it's going to be a tough game to beat. The Ravens have to play a perfect game. If they can do that, and they're capable, because they've beaten everybody that's been good that's gone to Baltimore this year, has flown, had that long trip home on that airplane to think about why they weren't that good. But when it's all said and done, this one's going to be tough. I don't think the Ravens are going to be able to do it. I think I'm going to be covering Kansas City. I'm going to get to ask Travis Kelce another question when he's at the podium. I'm going to get to bother Andy Reid, and the fake Andy Reid will probably be walking around, Radio Row. And the other game, San Francisco was beatable on Sunday night or Saturday night. Green Bay had the opportunity. Right. They were rusty. They had 2 weeks off. Green Bay had that game. Now San Francisco got a game back. Brock Purdy is not as good as Jared Goff. He's a very good quarterback. He's a game manager. And they had a better game manager in Garoppolo when they got rid of him. Now you got Brock Purdy. He's very good, but he's not a superstar. I like Goff. I liked him when he was in LA. I think the Lions got a great deal getting him. This is a tough ass to go beat a team that's got superstars all over the field. I think it's going to be a long day for Detroit, and I think the Ravens are going to be disappointed like the Bills were.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Here's what we have here. I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. I think Tommy Lasorda once told me, because God delayed does not mean that God denied, okay? This guy has lost a lot of games, but I think for some reason or another, this year will be his year. He's running a lot better. He's being paid a lot more money. He's taking a leadership role on that team. He's taking ownership of it. And, when you add Odell Beckham Jr. to your lineup, Zay Flowers, and the list goes on, he's got much better weapons. And even Jacob mentioned Todd Monken. So, I don't know. I have a real weird feeling that Baltimore is going to come away with it. I don't know why. It's just a gut feeling I have. As for the Lions game against the 49ers, you know what, JB, you pretty much said part of what I wanted to do. I think that when the Green Bay Packers made it very competitive against the 49ers, that may have opened the window for Detroit to say, let's take a look at what we've got here, that this team is beatable. And Jared Goff has been disrespected for a long time. I don't give a lick about what Skip Bayless has got to say about him. After all, his critical comments either anger you or you like him or you don't. But Jared Goff has been a cool customer in Detroit. He's won in the playoffs. He's been in the playoffs before. I think if the Lions were to lose, Christian McCaffrey will be the reason why they do it. But sure, don't underestimate the weapons that the Lions have. Jahmyr Gibbs, pretty good, okay? Sam Laporta, pretty good, right? Amon St. Brown, pretty good. The list goes on and on. So, and Dan Campbell would like nothing better than to do the final checkbox where there's 4 teams that have never been to a Super Bowl. Now there will be only 3 with the Lions being in it. Now, as I mentioned last night on Inside the Pigskin, when you talk about when these games are televised, the NFL is not stupid, okay? They wanted Kansas City and Baltimore to be the early game because now they're in love with the Lions in prime time. And guess what? The Lions don't lose in prime time unless you talk about the Dallas game where they were hosed in the first place. So, think about it. The Lions played the Rodney Dangerfield card for many years because their record certainly deserved it. They weren't getting any respect, but now they are getting the respect and they're getting prime time. So I don't know. Am I leading with my heart? Maybe a little bit. Yeah. But you know what? I think it's about time for my hometown to finally get the Lions in the Super Bowl and make that list of 4 dwindle down to 3 in terms of teams that have never been in the Super Bowl. So, all right. Well, you know what? We got a great lead in here, but I'll let Jacob.
Real quickly, I know they got Kansas City in the early game because all the Taylor Swift Swifties can stay up that early for that game. You know what I'm saying? That's why they have it.
Yeah. You know what? Boo. All right. There you go. All right, boo. I'm going to boo you again. All right. I won't use it as a hashtag because they use it in Philadelphia when they go out there and boo Santa Claus, but we'll leave that open. So, all right. With that said, Mr. Christner, we'll let you lead off with this one. Give me the predictions for both games. We don't need a story. We need some predictions a little bit there.
But scores, you mean?
Well, predictions, scores, whatever you want.
All right. As far as the game goes, like I said, I'm going with the final field goal, 33-30, KC over Baltimore. And pull away in the fourth quarter, San Francisco, 27-17. Final pull away. It's like it'll be a close game all the way to the fourth. Detroit will wear out a little bit. Purdy's going to kind of figure it out a little bit, get a few good passes, and is going to wear out Detroit 27-17.
Okay, we'll turn over to Travis.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement as far as general scores. Kind of what I said earlier. I think San Francisco is going to win over Detroit, and I think that one's probably going to be something closer to a 31-21, or maybe even 31-24 kind of range game. I think at one point or another will be a 10-point game, and whether or not Detroit trying to makes it a game later in the fourth quarter, I could reasonably see that happening. As far as Baltimore KC, kind of what I stated earlier, I think it's going to be a lot like that Detroit Lions Kansas City earlier season game. I think it might have been week 2, where it's going to be something like a 21-20. We're expecting these fireworks and everything else, and I think these two defenses just show up and make this a game where they're just having to matriculate the ball downfield and don't screw up. So yeah, I still think it's going to be a close win for Baltimore, but I do believe Baltimore pulls away.
All right, JB.
Yeah, I'm going to say San Francisco by 10, 34-24. Their defense is a little bit to be desired, even though they're playing better lately. And I'm going to go Kansas City 31-28 in a close game. Mahomes making them with a drive at the end.
Okay, well, I'm going to go Baltimore 24-17 over Kansas City. They got the home field advantage. It's got to be worth something over there. And, of course, Lamar Jackson is playing out of his mind. They'll go as far as his legs go in this game. And as far as the Lions, I'm going to give Detroit the advantage 30-26. So, all right, well, let's talk about the Chiefs-Bills a little bit more, because during that game, it topped 50 million viewers to become the most watched divisional game ever. So, Travis Holmes, what are your thoughts about that amount of people watching?
I mean, this has been something that's been ongoing throughout the season. We had multiple articles, mostly Jaguar related, because again, I cover the Jaguars, but that talked about all the random, weird, I guess, quirky, non-standard broadcasts that the NFL has been slowly leaning into to try to get the under 35 crowd involved and even the kids involved. And throughout this past season and throughout the year, they had plus 10% increase in the under 35 crowd. So they had like a 10% increase in just the female audience. So we knew going into the playoffs that it was going to be a spike in viewership because they're allowing more people to watch the game. And then on top of that, you have for everyone who's like ready to eat up this great football play, you have these two mutants, these two superheroes playing against each other in a close game. Come on, that's gonna get you there. Like, if you're giving the people 5 different ways to watch the game at the perfect time, and you were also expanding the sport via all these different avenues. Yeah, was a great game to watch, and it was absolutely worth being in this conversation of 50+ million eyes on it.
Okay, JB.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? I apologize.
Oh no, that's okay. Chiefs built top 50 million viewers to become the most watched divisional game ever. Does that surprise you at all?
Not at all. It was the game everybody wanted to watch. Mahomes versus Allen. It was the game we hoped to get at the beginning of the year. The Ravens proved that they're the best team in the AFC this year. But, the Chiefs sell, the Bills sell. They've had a long rivalry. And top it off, you got Taylor Swift now. And no matter what, that brings people to watch games, unfortunately. We may not enjoy her, but the people that own the sports networks and have to sell advertising are glad that she's there every week.
Jacob.
Well, hey Ralph, how you doing? No, you forget the one thing that really brought the audience: Jason Kelce shirtless. I mean, you got to remember that type of deal. Everybody wanted to see that. All of the fans, all 50 million wanted to see that. But thing is, it is not a shock, not in the least. We had the, and this one big time, Travis. We had the Toy Story game.
Yeah,
we had the Toy Story game. We had that part. And then it's been going since like the very first Nickelodeon game. They had the Nickelodeon. You have all those type of things. I heard from an old buddy of mine. He used to say to me, I didn't like the Nickelodeon things, like that kind of stuff at first and what's going on with like Toy Story. Then he reminded me that 53% of kids watch it the same way we used to, sports. They watch it the same way. So they have to do what they can, which means Toy Story games, which means Nickelodeon, which means Taylor Swift.
Right.
And it's like, and it's going to be, here's the thing. They're going to pray and hope Travis Kelce has one more year in him because we won't see Taylor again. And then truthfully, even though we're going to have big audiences still, 50 million, are we going to break records without her? It's like those are kids watching. They're casuals. They want casuals. Sports wants casuals. That's the big thing.
Well, keep in mind that Jason Kelce retired, so we'll see what happens there. All right, let's go over to some top headlines. The Miami Dolphins and defensive coordinator Vic Fangio have agreed to part ways after one season together, the team announced Wednesday. So it looks like Fangio is going to be headed to Philadelphia to be with the Eagles. I know that he obviously lives in the Pennsylvania area. Other news worth talking about here that I want to get to is this, okay? Apparently, the Las Vegas Raiders are scheduling an interview with USC assistant coach Cliff Kingsbury for their offensive coordinator position. Does anybody have any thoughts about that?
Which team?
The Raiders.
Yeah, Steelers were supposed to be doing that also. I think the Bears did also. I don't want him as a coach. I think he's got a great, I don't want him as a coach. You got to realize, though, as an offensive coordinator, the quarter of his career games had 30-plus points. He knows the game. He knows the offensive game. Defensive game, he's horrible. He's garbage.
Right.
Keep him away from the head job. Put him as a coordinator. And if he would go, here's the thing, all I'm going to say. If he goes to Pittsburgh, knowing what they did with Arians, Haley, anybody else as an offensive coordinator, what those fans did with them, shut up. Let them do their job. You keep running them out. If you keep running them out, you'll get another Matt Canada. And that is your karma. So guess what? Whoever gets this guy as an offensive coordinator, they got a treat there. Just don't let him take over the coach job.
Well, that's fine. All I can tell you is at the moment he's interviewing for the Raiders, so we'll stay on point with that. Anybody else have anything to say about it?
I'm iffy on Cliff, and I've always been iffy on him. When he was in the league, because his offenses were always middle of the pack, like and in most advanced metrics, like they were always just middle of the pack. At one point, they were 15th in points. Actually, no, I'm actually looking at an article right now. They're 15th in points, 15th in total yards, 18th in yards per play. Like they are pretty consistently just a middle of the pack offense, which will be an immense increase for a lot of these offenses. To be clear, you're talking the Raiders, you're talking the Steelers, etc. Like if you give Mike Tomlin an offense that's 15th in the league, these guys are waving flags and talking about Super Bowls, like in the way that they play defense. So in that way, yeah, that would be a good situation. But if you're a team that has just an adequate, previously had an adequate offensive coordinator, he's not going to be that guy to make you a top 10 offense consistently. But yeah, he'll get you there if you could play some solid defense and run the rock.
Okay, well, the worst case secret in Wisconsin became a reality as Joe Barry is out as Packers defensive coordinator after 3 years.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted him out. Well, be careful what you ask for.
I didn't think Matt had it in him, baby. I really didn't think Matt had it in him.
But I don't get, you see, the moves like that would irritate me with teams.
Why?
Granted, I don't really ever root for anyone to be fired, but there are times it's necessary. Was this a necessary move? I mean, what at his body of work with the way the team played this year, was he the reason that they lost? And
So this is an interesting one because I thought that when I said earlier, I'm like, I didn't think Matt had it in him. Like I played for Matt LaFleur up in Northern Michigan, so I've been paying really close attention to him. I'm always in my guy's corner, like in that way. And when I said I didn't think he had it in him, is because Joe didn't call a game in which it would be egregious. I would say, like it's not something that was so bad that you had to fire him, but it was also not good enough based with the athletes that he had, and it was not aggressive enough with the guys that he had in the way that you knew it wasn't going to work long term. So if it's not going to work long term, like what must be done today must be done tomorrow, right? Whether or not it's 3 years from now, whether or not it's 2 years from now, if you know it's not going to work eventually, you can pull the Band-Aid off now, you can pull it off later, but you know the Band-Aid is going to be pulled off eventually.
I don't know. I disagree with this move. I think, the team was on an upswing. You're blaming him for the wrong things. It wasn't the year to win the Super Bowl. This was supposed to be a rebuilding year. You made it into the playoffs. You spanked Dallas. You played competitive against San Francisco. You had a positive outlook after all this. To let somebody go shows that there was a problem somewhere on this team, and obviously the head coach is not the problem. He's done a phenomenal job. And I'll go back to when Rodgers was there and he had the team performing well, dealing with all of Rodgers' crap that he just disappeared and did whatever he wanted to do. And that team always came out and fired on all cylinders. Then this year is supposed to be a rebuilding year. Nobody wants to see Love. Love's garbage. Love is this. Love is that. Jordan Love had a phenomenal season. I think I was one of the few people that said, let's see what the kid can do before we say he's horrible. Yeah. He has talent, and he had a great year. I think that, to go and fire somebody when you could have built on what you had, it's like taking a step back because now you're going to get a whole new defensive system. And I just don't see it as a positive. I think, it kind of took away from the great season that they had.
Well, I don't know that I view it as a positive or a negative. I just view it as a net. I just view it as like a flat line. Like I don't know that it's worse or better because when you had to stop someone, you couldn't stop them. And if there is a philosophy as far as a philosophy on how the defense should be called, if there is a gap there between the head coach and the DC, yeah, that's something that where you could just easily mutually just decide to split. I mean, it's not significantly different than what happened in Miami.
Yeah, but if there was a significant difference, it should have been way before a game you guys should have got blown out in. You played a great game. You lost by a one-score game. After you shut down Dallas's offense the week before. I mean, you basically pitched a shutout the whole first half. The only points was when your defensive back fell and CD got wide open because of it. So you basically can't say that the defensive coordinator doesn't know what he's doing or he's got a bad scheme because Dallas has a great offense and you were shutting them down. Dak and CD looked like they were in New York playing the Giants,
right? Because
they weren't in Dallas playing that game. I don't know who was there. It was like a Space Jam when they got taken over by the Martians. It was horrible.
The Martians would be better.
Well, you know what? Let's stick to the employment theme in Wisconsin because, as it turns out, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Doc Rivers has agreed to become the next head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously,
I didn't get to say my end on the.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I say this and I say this quickly to every front office: quit listening to fans. Quit listening to them. Quit listening to them. Stop it. There was nothing wrong with him to be able to get this. And unless you have a much better defensive coordinator, unless you have Fangio in the wings, you just screwed your team up. Jordan Love proved me wrong, and they've got themselves a future now. Now you're going to mess this up because you listen to stupid fans. Quit listening to them.
All right, I want to get a couple more headlines in, so we're going to get to them. We're going to stay in the state of Wisconsin. As I mentioned, Doc Rivers has agreed to become the next head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. Rivers' reported hiring comes less than 24 hours after the club dismissed Adrian Griffin just 43 games into the first campaign as head coach. And, you know, the first-year coach, just so you know, his record is 30-13. Rivers has ties to the Milwaukee area as he played with the Marquette. At that time, they were the Warriors. And the one thing that the Bucks are going to have to try to do is shore up their defense. And ex-Memphis Grizzlies and Sacramento Kings head coach Dave Yeager is under consideration to join his staff. Well, I just want to go ahead and get to headlines right now. And if we have time to voice opinions, we'll do exactly that. Let's stay to the association. And that says Draymond Green was left off Team USA playoff pool due to his suspension. Well, about time that he got nailed for something like this. You know, you talk about a guy that's had his suspension. He was suspended actually twice this season for on-court altercations with opposing players. He served a 5-game ban for putting Rudy Gobert in a headlock and then was suspended indefinitely 6 games after his return for striking Phoenix Suns center Yusuf Nurkic in the face. So let's face it, reality that this guy here, his behavior finally caught up with him. A few other things I want to make sure we get on. In case you didn't see it yesterday, you can see it now. Okay. 4 new people will join the Hall of Fame, and those players include, and I'm really happy for Todd Helton. I really am. Todd Helton, Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, and of course, former Tigers manager Jim Leland. All right, JB, give me your thoughts about the Hall of Fame's newest inductees.
You know, I was actually quite pleased with the list. There was nobody on the list that I thought, yeah, that shouldn't be. Why is that guy in there? You know, I looked at the list. I said, you know, good choices. I can understand why they're Hall of Famers. You know, still don't have the people that should be in the Hall of Fame in there. You know, but that's not going to change anytime soon.
Well, the vote totals actually is Adrian Beltre gets there on his first year at 95.1%, which is really good. And I was happy for Todd Helton many years ago when I was covering the Cactus League. I interviewed Todd Helton, one of the nicest guys on the planet. He spent his entire year with Colorado. It's his 6th year on the ballot, 79.7%. And Joe Mauer, the hometown kid, spent his entire career with the Twins. First year on the ballot, 76.1. All you have to do is just get in. Anybody else have any thoughts about that?
Really quickly, just happy with them all. Happy for Mauer, hometown kid. Happy with everything. That's very, very cool. I would have loved to have seen, truthfully, Billy Wagner. I like it, but it's no big deal. No big deal. They were all good picks.
He'll get in.
Wagner. Yeah, well, actually, I'm glad you brought up Billy Wagner. This is 9th year on the ballot, but he had 73.8%. So all he needs is a few more votes to go out there and turn the corner. And okay, Candy Ebling corrected me. Doc Rivers, number 31, retired jersey for the Marquette Golden Eagles. At one point, they won the national championship under Al McGuire. Great program out there. It really, really is out in Milwaukee. As far as Sheffield, well, you know what? One thing I want to get back to with Mauer, though, when you look at his numbers relative to Don Mattingly, now his numbers are comparable. Maybe that hopefully jumpstarts Don Mattingly when they get to the Veterans Committee. And, of course, Gary Sheffield could get in via the Veterans Committee as well. We have a great show tonight, trying to get to as many things as possible. Is there any, I'm trying to think of anything? Oh, here's a good one that I'd like to mention. The Washington Nationals landed Joey Gallo on a 1-year, $5 million contract. So glad to see Joey land somewhere else. So want to let everybody know that once again, the Sports Exchange is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of the Sports Exchange can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in the chat room is one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to South Florida Tribune at gmail.com. If If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X at Tribune South. Candy Ebling is behind the scenes and producing the show. My book is out there, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, pretty much entails old school media versus new school media. I talk about the people that are indirect and direct, where I learned a lot of things from, and hopefully you'll be able to learn something there. It's available on Kindle and Amazon. And obviously, JB, myself, and Jacob Christner are very delighted to be affiliated with NGB and TV. Will launch on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and mobile devices. It will be in 85% of the homes in the United States and Canada, and 4.1 billion mobile devices. Really, to summarize the whole thing in a nutshell, this is the channel here, which is really more 40s, 50s, and 60s to try to bring out about the awareness of men's suicide. Right, JB? Want to add a little bit to that?
Listen, I mean, anyone that's not with that cause, I have to question who you are as a person. We're obviously better with everybody here than we are if you're not here. There's always somebody to talk to. There's the suicide line, and there's if you have issues, go to my Facebook, go to my Twitter, go to Jacob, go to Scott. I'm sure you can go to Travis. I don't know him as well as the other two, but I'm sure Travis will turn you away. And if we can't help you, we'll get you to the right people. We don't ever want to see somebody feel that they have nowhere to go. The world's better with you here. There's somebody out there that cares about you. You just may not realize it yet, no matter how bad things are.
I think at some point, a lot of us have contemplated it many years ago. When I lived in Arizona going through a tough divorce, it certainly entered my mind. But again, thankfully, it didn't happen. So with that said, on behalf of Jacob Christner, JB Ellis, and welcome to Travis Holmes, he'll be on again. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange.